So our Pong game is starting to take shape. Notice the ball can click off the walls. I can move the paddle. The ball will also hit off the paddle. So the next thing to worry about here is how to increment the score. So the first thing that I would do is let's create a variable, a placeholder, something that can keep track of the score. So under variables, initialize and call this thing the score. And of course, set its initial value to 0. Great. So notice we already have an event handler that keeps track of when the paddle hits the ball. So let's also use this to increment the score. So under variables again, we can set the score value to be the current score value plus 1. So under math, get the addition block and go ahead and get the value 1 and plug it in there. And I also want to add 1 to the current value of the score. So go under variables again and get the score. So what this is going to do is going to have that score variable, add 1 to the current value, and set that to be the new score value. So every time the ball hits the paddle, it'll increment that score value by 1. Just doing this, however, isn't going to show up on the score because this isn't quite updating the label yet. So let's go ahead and do that next. Find the score value label on the left-hand side. I want to update its text value. So we'll set the score value.text. We'll update that to be the value of that variable. We'll go ahead and get the score variable. Great. So now, whenever the ball hits that paddle, you should have the score be incremented. Now, off the screen, the ball's already hit the paddle a couple of times, so you can see that it's already a score of 7 there. But if it would hit it again, see this score gets incremented. Great. So, another thing to deal with is when the game is initially started, maybe we should set that score to be equal to 0. And of course, that's going to happen when the start button gets clicked. So let's move these guys down a little bit to give me some more room when the start button gets pressed. I'm going to initialize, again, the variable global score to be equal to 0 when the start button is pressed. And similarly, I also need to update the score value, the label, so that we actually see that on the screen. So again, get the text value for the score value and set that to be equal to the variable score. So now when the start button is pressed, the score value will go to 0. Let's take a look, make sure that works. Sure enough, it works. And we are well on our way to having a working Pong game. Let's next deal with this game over business. When the start button is pressed, we don't want to see game over. So we have that game over label. Let's set its visibility to be equal to false or not visible when the game is initially set. So we'll set game over.visible, and under logic here we can get the false block. When do we want the game over to be shown? Well, when the ball hits the very bottom edge. That very bottom edge has the value of -1. And so under this block here, when the Pong ball hits an edge, I can check to see if the edge it hit is the edge -1. If so, make the game go over. So we'll go under the control block here and get this if block. So I want to check to see if that edge hit is equal to -1, then make the game over. If it's not equal to -1 though, then it just hit one of the walls or it might have hit the paddle or something like that. Then I want to have it keep on bouncing off the edge. So click this little gear here. I want to add an else scenario to my if statement and put that block in the else clause. Great, so now let's check to see if that edge is equal to -1. So under math, I can check for equality like so. I'll hover over edge to get that edge and put it in one of the spots, and also then get a -1 here. So if that edge, if the ball hits the edge, which is equal to -1, then let's stop. Let's make the game over. So I'm going to copy this block for the game over label, paste it, and plug it in here, and make that true. When the ball hits the bottom, make game over true. I also want to stop the ball in its tracks. So let's make the ball's speed, set that equal to 0. So click on the pong ball, scroll down till you find its set speed block. Put that in there and set that speed to be equal to 0. Good. Should be in pretty good shape. Let's take a look at the app. So notice when the ball hit the bottom, it stopped. If I press start, I don't see the game over any longer. I can play the game bouncing off of the paddle. And if I happen to miss it, it stops with game over. Not bad. All right, so one challenge is, can you add another variable that keeps track of the speed and also increment the speed of the ball as the game goes on, incrementing the speed after every time the ball hits the paddle? Have at it.